So Randy, it's my screen, right? We're live. We're live. Yay. Okay. Welcome to the wild world of live streaming. We are in Pennsylvania. Some of us are in Pennsylvania. We'll be hearing from our filmmakers here. They'll tell us where they are. My name is Pearl Gluck. I'm the artistic director of the Center Film Festival. We're in our third year. This is, I think, our third live stream, and I think we're doing great. We've had some really exciting conversations already. Please go to our website or even on Facebook or on YouTube, and you could listen to some of the other filmmakers talking about their work. Today is a very special film, and I saw this film through a friend of mine and discovered through the artist in the film itself, and then discussed this film with Catherine Axley, who you're about to meet on our programming committee. And she was pretty blown away by it too. And I think if you've already watched the film, you know why. And if you don't, I won't give too much away, but I will say that it's one of those genre bending, various leveled storytelling approaches that make you reconsider ways in which you might want to tell a story. And telling a story where we call the section striking connections, where it doesn't tell you what to think per se, even as the main character of both films playing in this block is going through something which is so obvious to us, it takes them a minute to get it. And what gets them to get it is what's so interesting in both of these projects. And in this project, particularly because this was such a huge historical moment for so many of us, at least in the United States, if not beyond globally. I am so thrilled to have not just one person from the film present, but we have the director, the star and the creator, and the producer of the project. They'll all get introduced to you by Catherine. And the producer, Lara, is actually the producer of Lorelei, which is our opening night film in Phillipsburg. So you get to meet the producer now. And we'll make sure people live know they can come back to this Q&A and meet the producer of Lorelei, another truly important and powerful piece of work. So with that, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Catherine Axley. We just managed somehow to entice Catherine to come here to Penn State and teach with us in our film production department. Catherine is an award-winning filmmaker in her own right, and truly has been a pleasure to work with as a new person on our film festival team. So with that, I introduce you to Catherine Axley, and she will introduce you to the rest of the panel, and I will see you at the next event. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Pearl, and it's so great to be here. It's an honor to have, as Pearl mentioned, three of the filmmakers who are behind this film with us today. We're here for a Kaddish for Bernie Madoff, which they describe as a mystical meta musical about the greatest financial fraud in history. And I also have to add my 2 cents about when I first saw this as well, because like Pearl, I was really taken with this project. And, you know, I'd never seen a film quite like this before. I instantly fell under its spell. And after screening it again and watching some sequences multiple times, I'm in awe of the layers of complexity and intuition and heart that is infused into this project. In watching it, if you have not yet seen it, you will see that it's a true work of multifaceted artists who push boundaries to explore questions that extend far beyond Bernie Madoff and his financial crimes. And in this film, they combine music, live performance, poetry, nonfiction investigations, stunning cinematography and visual design to create this pulsing and vibrant film that should leave those of you who have watched it and who will watch it with much to reflect on many days after screening this film. So it's an honor to have our three creators here with us to learn more about how this project came to be and to reflect on their journey. So I'm going to introduce each one of them. So first we have Alicia Jo Rabins, who's the star and creator of the project. And if I mispronounce your name, please let me know.
You got it.
Okay. And Alicia is a writer, musician, composer, performer, and Torah teacher. She creates multi-genre works of experimental beauty, which explore the intersection of ancient wisdom texts with everyday life. Alicia's work as a poet is reflected in her 2 award-winning poetry collections, Divinity School and Fruit Geode. And as a writer, musician, and composer, she's the creator and performer of Girls in Trouble, an indie folk song cycle about the complicated lives of biblical women with an accompanying curriculum. Alicia is also a coffee drinker, plant lover, DIY bar bat banai mitzvah tutor, and ritualist. She tours internationally as a violinist, singer, lecturer, and performer from her home base in Portland, Oregon, where she lives with her husband and 2 kids. So welcome, Alicia, today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
And because Alicia Jo Rabin's name is very similar to the director's name, Alicia J. Rose, at times I'm going to try to call Alicia Jo Rabin's Ajo and Alicia J. Rose A-Ro. So next we have the director, Alicia J. Rose. She's the film's director and editor. And she also worked with Ajo to adapt the project for the screen. She has directed over 36 music videos for artists like First Aid Kit, Cake, and Bob Mould, as well as visually branding popular bands like the Decemberists and many others with her imaginative portraiture. Alicia spent 20 years in the indie music business before turning her eye to filmmaking in 2008, and her approach to directing utilizes her unique sense of visual style, grounded humor, and storytelling to deliver authentic narratives that resonate deeply with viewers. The scripted comedic web series, The Benefits of Husbandry, was her first foray into digital episodic storytelling, and over its 2 seasons received wide acclaim from press outlets like the New York Times, Entertainment Weekly, AV Club, Paste, Out, and others. She was selected as a semifinalist in HBO Access's 2018 Directing Fellowship, and I believe that she's also based in Portland, Oregon. Is that right, A-Ro?
Hey, yes, very right. And also very honored and happy to be here.
Awesome. Welcome. And then finally, we have Laura Cuddy, who's the film's producer. And Laura is the co-founder of Outcast, etc., and a producer at Polluted Pictures. She has over 20 years of experience in concept development, marketing strategy, and project management, and works as a producer and designer in a broad range of media, including film and video, broadcast, print, and interactive. She produces, does market strategy and project development on independent short and feature film projects, commercials, music videos, television, and digital series. And some of her notable projects include feature films such as The Mortuary Collection, Lorelei, which was screening at Center Film, Badland, Deep Dark, and Birds of Neptune, as well as the critically acclaimed Portland comedy web series directed by A-Ro, The Benefits of Husbandry. So welcome, Laura, today.
Thank you. Great to be here. Wonderful to see you all, and excited to discuss the film.
Awesome. Great. So there's so many places we could begin, but to introduce our festival goers to how this project came to being, I'd like to start with the idea of cycles in creating this. In the film, we learned that the project originated and was incubated during Ajo's artist residency back in 2008 at the cusp of the financial crisis. And we see her artistic process as she grapples with this newfound fixation on Bernie Madoff, trying to understand why she's fixated and obsessed. So I'm curious, Ajo, if you can start by explaining to us the various cycles this project has taken in terms of the various forms it has taken from incubation right up until before actually making the film.
Yes, I love this question. I love that you use the word cycles, because cycles are such a huge theme in the film. And I've actually never used that word in my own imagination, thinking about the different cycles that the piece itself has lived through. So thank you for that. When I originally got interested in Bernie Madoff during this time that I had an artist residency on Wall Street during the financial collapse, I was sort of living through the whole thing, watching it out my window. First, it was just a kind of, little mini obsession in my own mind. And then it just kind of bubbled to the point where, when an obsession gets to a certain point, it turns into an art piece. That's kind of how my life works. So I thought, I'll write a rock opera, because he kind of seemed like a tragic Greek kind of anti-hero. And so I started to write that piece, and then I realized how expensive that would be because I had not worked in theater before, and I scaled it back to be a solo show. So the first 8 years or so of this piece's life, the first life cycle was as a solo show, sometimes with a live band, sometimes with animations by the same animator who ended up creating the beautiful animation in the film, Zach Margolis, where I would perform it in theatrical venues once or twice a year, kind of as I was invited to do it. And then it was just so much work to get it up and running every time. And I felt like, okay, I'm ready to sort of put the touring presentation to bed and document it well. And that began the second, what I thought would be the second and last incarnation, which was going to just be a well done theatrical documentation with 2 or 3 cameras filming me doing the show in a live venue. And as I began to plan that, I thought, well, it would be nice to have it be a little more engaging than just 3 cameras on a stage. And that's when I brought in Alicia Rose, who I didn't know, but I knew her work and was a fan of hers. And I had gotten an email that was intended for her because our names are so similar. So that's how I discovered her work. And I was sort of artistically stalking her in a non-creepy way. And I thought, oh, this is the perfect person based on her amazing storytelling skills and kind of visual strength. I thought, oh, she'll be an amazing person to help me think about how I could broaden out this documentation of a theater piece into something that has a little more life and energy. And then she came and said, honestly, I think you should just make it into a film. And that was what birthed the sort of probably final life cycle of this feature film that you now see.
Awesome. Yeah. And and I do stutter sometimes. So that may occur. To follow up on that last point, I'm so curious for, that at first you were thinking of just having a chance to document this live performance that had been a part of your life for so long. But then I'm curious for Aero, when you watched this performance piece and you knew that Ajo had a desire to document it, what about this performance piece made you say, wait, hold on, this is not just we can't just do a documentation, there's something else here. What made you see it as a potential work of cinema?
Good question. I'd spent many years, I basically had just come off making my own project about my own life, which is my web series, Benefits of Husbandry, and I was sick of telling my own story. So I was kind of at this point where I knew I needed to do something bigger, but I was also kind of done with myself. So that was just kind of my state of mind, my headspace. And then Ajo reached out really as out of the blue. I didn't know her. We didn't know each other at all. And asked me to consult for $50 an hour, probably for 3 hours, I think. And, I've worked with so many musicians over the years, especially with music videos, translating their songs and stories into my stories through my lens and combining our sort of spirits together to make something that speaks for both of us, right? In some way, me as a filmmaker, them as a musician, I felt really comfortable. Once I kind of got into the work that she had sent, I was like, well, first of all, the music is so good. I just love the songs. And I love that she sang them in the first person. And I just, I think I must have listened to the music before I even watched the stage show. And that really kind of informed me, because in my head, immediately I was having imagination explosions over all these songs and what the characters would be. And then when I saw her previous videography of the shows, and it had already been done 2 other times in different, maybe not as good as the way she wanted to do it, but it was already there. When I saw that, in some way, I was already a fan quickly, because I just thought, wow, who is this person? Amazing. This is crazy, right? Like, what rabbit hole did she go down? And I have to go there with her. But when I saw the videography, I was like, well, where's what I wanted? Where's the stuff that I was like? So when I sat down with her, I had kind of already had I don't think we've ever told you this story. So good questions will bring out new things. But when I sat down with her, I just was I already saw it in my head. I just felt those songs as this anchor, potentially as music videos, or to treat them in that way, maybe not exactly. And to then maybe there could be a way to anchor. I saw it. It was one of those things. Like when you're for me, because I've worked with so many other artists, either someone will come to me and say, can you do this thing? Sometimes I'm like, absolutely, here's the way, immediately. Sometimes, other times I'm just, it's like, there's nothing, there's crickets. So this, I saw it and I came in with her, and she, asked me what I thought. And by the way, the videographer was sitting at the table that she had hired. I was there just to say how to like spice it up. It was terrifying for him. I'm sure he was just like, what? Because he saw us, we were already whirling dervishing, which we do creatively. So I said exactly that. I was like, I think there's more here. I think that this, the music is so good and the story is so good. I could see a way to marry these two things in a way that would go so beyond you in front of a projection in a black box room. Like, that's cool, but like, I don't want to see another videographer. Like, as a fan already of this music and material, I do not want to see I'm not going to get the same thing out of a black box performance. Maybe live, I would feel differently. I never got the chance to see it live, but from a film perspective, I just thought there was a huge opportunity. And I just was really, it was incredible grace that I thought that. I don't think that about everything. I just was really, it swept me up into, her imagination, her story. And I felt, well, I want to be in New York, with her. I want to be at the residency. I want to be walking down Wall Street being like, WTF, why is Bernie Madoff talking to me in ghost projection form? Like, I want to be there. And so, luckily I spoke my truth in that moment. I wasn't intending to like pitch or blindside, but I did both those things. And the poor videographer at the end of the meeting was like, Ajo, I think, turned to him and he's like, she said, what do you think? And he's like, I think she's right. And then that was the last I think we saw of him. 3 years later, hi.
Oh, that is amazing. That is amazing. And I definitely have some follow-up questions on how you guys adapted it to film. But first, I'm curious, and I'm not sure at what stage Laura, you came in, but if you came in early, I'm curious, as Pearl mentioned in the intro, and as we see with a genre bending work, that I imagine that it was probably difficult, perhaps early on, to figure out how to communicate this concept to others, to potential funders, to even people who might be part of the crew, and certainly now to distributors. So I'm curious. As producer, I imagine that that's something you've had to think a lot about, and so I'm curious if you could share with us some of those challenges and perhaps how that has informed how you understand how genre works in film right now in 2021.
Well, thank you. Another amazing question. Lots to unpack there, but I would say, so Alicia Rose and I have, at the point that she introduced this project to me, she and I had worked on several things before this project came along. So we had traversed a lot of territory together and covered a lot of different creative landscapes. So I always can trust Alicia to bring things to me that are outside the norm. And so, and essentially that's what I really look for as a producer as well. So the fact that I had never seen anything like this before, I had never made anything like this before, was an immediate attraction. And then in terms of what I look for creatively and operationally, are, resonance with the content. And the content is just so full of juxtaposition that for me, visually and operationally, it presents challenges that are really exciting. So, and then along those same lines, those challenges represent opportunities to do things that I haven't done before, or represent opportunities to figure out ways to solve creative and visual problems in new and unique ways. So it was very ripe. This project was very ripe for the picking in terms of multiple artists getting together, putting their ideas all in one pile, and then sorting out what's possible given the resources that we had. And then once I met Ajo, the personality fit was clear from the beginning. And the fact that Aero and I had already worked together on several projects really helped solidify that jumping off point. I would say, in terms of how to talk about the project to people, that was a very, I mean, I think we still are imagining and coming up with ways to talk about the project today. And that's always been a challenge from the very beginning. So we are kind of still unpacking and still finding ways to talk about the project with people. We're also learning that as people watch the film, the way the people who watch the film talk about the film really help us to see things in the film that we, maybe weren't obvious before, and they're helping us find ways to talk about the film in accessible ways to audiences, festivals, distributors. I don't know if that doesn't answer all the questions, but it gets the ball rolling on some of those deeper layers of the collaboration, I think.
Yeah, no. And you mentioned part of the reason you were attracted to this is having so many kind of artists in a room with different ideas, doing something completely new. And I'm curious in reflecting on the production process, the actual filming of the project for Ajo, because this had been a one-woman show for 10 years at that point almost. So I'm curious for you, what was that like to be filming with others, to have others kind of, I mean, first of all, you're kind of on a set, on location. It's very different than being, having a live show. But then I'm curious what it was like to have fellow cast members and have many creatives involved in the production.
Yes. Oh, I love that question. Well, there's two things I would say. One is that I've been a musician since I was a kid, basically. And so that the idea of collaborating has just always, since childhood, has been part of what I love about making art. Although I'm also a writer, and this happened to be a solo show. So there are a lot of times when I find myself alone in a room or alone on stage, but being in a deep collaborative environment, whether it's with these two other amazing women who we were just full on co-collaborators from the day the film project began through now and beyond, or the actual production, which was many more people, that's a very joyful environment for me. I don't love being alone. I don't love making work alone. So I loved that part of it. The other thing that I'll say is that, for a long time, I thought there was something wrong with me as an artist because I kept having ideas and going into new mediums that I was not trained in. Like I was trained as a classical violinist, and then suddenly I fell in love with fiddle music, and I'm doing that. And then I started writing songs, and I'm playing guitar. And you could do the same with my writing practice, which began with poetry and now is onto playwriting and things like that. And it took a long time for me to identify that actually working in mediums that are new to me, or media that are new to me, is actually part of my practice. And is joyful for me to combine all of my years of artistic training and kind of craft practice with sort of that spark that happens when you have beginner's mind and you really know nothing about the form. You don't have any assumptions. So my first time really performing anything theatrical was this piece 10 years before. And then my first time on a film set literally was the day I walked onto the first day of production of this film. And so I was like, if I had been a PA, I would have been constantly yelled at because I was just like stepping on the wrong things and being in the wrong place. But everyone's like, okay, she's kind of in charge, so we'll just tell her nicely not to do that, So it was just really exhilarating for me to be at the very edge of what I knew about artistic practice, working in a new form, but also with a piece that I knew so well by this point, and drawing on my training as a musician and as a performer and as a writer. It was really like a peak experience being on that set.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and And I love that idea that working in new mediums is part of your practice. And, I imagine for Aero, you have many years of film experience and music videos and your most recent web episodic series. But this in many ways is also like kind of a sort of new medium. And I'm curious, in watching the film and knowing that you edit it as well, I was really struck with the structural approach, like how seamlessly Ajo's various thematic inquiries and lines of investigation and the songs kind of build into one another, into this, really satisfying exploration. But at the same time, the rules you kind of craft are changing. Like the first times we see Ajo, when she enacts the interviews and sings, there's no real kind of live performance. She's singing, but then in others later on, we see that she's playing violin and there's a drummer and there's a cellist. So in that way, the form feels like fresh, and there are rules, but they're constantly mediated and changed. So I'm just curious, like how did that happen? Like, how did you find this structure? I would imagine that the edit took a long time, but that a lot of this had to have, of course, been conceived ahead of time.
It was a mix. I mean, we edited pretty much the entire year of 2020. So we had the luxury of, the anti-luxury of a global pandemic that kept us at home with no work really. And, the ability and the privilege to be able to spend time working on this project together virtually. But, I'll come back to that. The thing about this project from the beginning, even as we were adapting it, I was like, this is going to be weird. Like, this does not play by the rules of film. And am I going to get a lot of flack for this? Or is this going to be okay? And I also knew that I had to be the editor, because we couldn't afford any other way. And that was how we were going to make the film, right? Just like Ajo was going to star in it. We could have found other people to be those characters, but that was the best way to go because, well, I knew that that's the way it had to go. But it's just something we talked about at the beginning. Well, do we do it this way or that way? And then, I can explain it this way. Part of it was very intuitive. Some things happen in the moment. There's a level of experimentation that happened while we were filming sometimes. I'm assuming people who are watching this have probably seen the film, but at the end of the film, there's a sequence. Basically, throughout the film, Ajo plays different characters that are sort of dramatic interpretations of the people she interviewed about the Madoff scheme. Throughout her obsessional year with this artist residency. So she plays all these characters, but on the first day of filming, I decided I wanted to have them all perform the Kaddish at the end. That was on the fly. That was something that was not necessarily preconceived. I just was like, once I knew what we had in the bottle, as it were, once I caught the precious rare firefly and we're standing there with cameras, I'm like, holy crap, we have to do this too. Because I saw immediately that that's how we would end the film. Because, it was such a unique, odd piece. I mean, we went into it, I think, knowing 80, maybe 75, 80% of what it would be, maybe less. I don't even know. But I knew that we could get enough because I was treating it with my sense of narrative, which is a mix of, experimentation and imagination and like straight up storytelling, which is kind of the skill set I developed making music videos. A lot of it's interpretive, some of it's not always so literal. So, and then as the editor, I knew it was going to be hard to make it feel, and thank you for that incredible compliment, by the way. I'm so happy that it felt seamless to you and is feeling seamless to many other viewers. That's huge. It took a lot of massaging and playing, and we had gone to Manhattan a year before Principal to do our crowdfunding video, and we'd gotten some really beautiful footage there. So I really kind of mined whatever we had to create these really sort of peaceful transitions from place to place, because it's a lot. We kind of really, once you know what the conceit is after Evelyn, you're like, oh, okay. We didn't want it unfolds pretty quickly, but you have to realize you're on this ride. We got you, and just stick with it and you'll be happy at the end. I knew it would be adventurous in that regard. I knew maybe people would sort of totally get it or not get it because of those choices. But, at the end of the day, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think it's the most accessible experimental film that most people will see. Like once you get past the fact that it might not be like a regular movie and it's telling a different kind of story, a different kind of way, it unfolds so beautifully. And Ajo is, I think, what I saw in her that very first day, it just projects so beautifully through the film. She's such an authentic, incredible soul who happens to be really talented and be a great songwriter and storyteller. And she's such a joy to watch, and she really brought this incredible soulfulness to the characters, to the songs themselves. But then once we plopped her into these film sets for the first time, she really, we really, it was the two of us in those rooms. There were other people there and there, but once it was action, it was the two of us. And we really, we made that art together in that moment all the time. She was, it's crazy, but we trusted each other. And so, I think it was my first feature as well. And I knew it was risky in a lot of ways. It was very risky. It's very risky to get a lot of people who've never really done anything quite like this in the room together to do it. And Laura, brought a very big point to us early on, which was that we wouldn't have been able to make it if we tried to film it in New York, the whole thing. So half of it is filmed in Portland and half is filmed in New York. So, a lot of risks from the beginning, but now we're like a year past the risk taking and it's like, wow, okay. We've some great things have happened and they continue to happen. So people are being moved by the film in the way that it was intended. And in so many ways we haven't ever even thought of. So I hope that was good.
Yeah.
Long but good answer to that.
No. That is so helpful. And it's really interesting to hear that some things kind of happen spontaneously on set and that some ideas kind of occurred to you in the moment. And I'm curious, this might be for Laura or for any three of you. So knowing that most of the film was actually shot in Portland and that these exteriors were in Manhattan, I'm curious what the process was like and what the feeling was like to go to Manhattan with the intent of seeking out these themes and these ideas. And because I know in the beginning of the film, Ajo introduces us to this idea of 2008, this is a weird year. I mean, it's so interesting to hear now, the 1 millionth user on Facebook, right now in this moment, right when the financial collapse is about to occur, and she notes all these improbable combinations like gleamy and shining and grimy and cheap. And I'm curious for you guys as the film team who has been thinking so much about these themes and the repercussions of Bernie Madoff's crimes, not only on the victims, but what they mean through kind of a larger thematic lens. What it was like to go there with the camera and try to kind of capture some of those improbable combinations.
Is Ajo looking at me? We should both answer this, but it was before COVID. So Wall Street was pretty much Wall Street. It was a lot dirtier than it is now. Apparently, there's no tourists, so it's different. But and when we went for the crowdfunding video, we also got into one of the original spaces where not the exact space where she'd done the residency, but very, very similar. And so I got to be in one of these buildings, really feeling like her. And we saw the clocks that were used to be on the wall. A lot of those elements came from that visit when we kind of scattered an original space. But Wall Street's a weird place, man. We just kind of did it with filming in New York. Here's the deal: if you don't really put sticks down, you can do whatever you want. If you're running around with a camera, you can run around with a camera and whatever. As long as you're not blocking traffic, nobody's going to tell you to stop. And if you know that, and we had an amazing cinematographer in New York, Brad Reed, and I want to mention Asia Brown, who's a cinematographer in Portland. Incredible. They both did incredible work. But he's a complete punk rock superstar and was had someone in the car so we could double park in front of the hydrant so we could film in front of the building down on Wall Street. It was just completely punk rock in every way. So a lot of it was run and gun. We didn't know exactly what we were going to get. That happens a lot in music video making too. You just kind of go with an intention and then you just rock it out. And Ajo is such a wonderful subject and would just be like, okay, what do you want me to do? All right. And then she was doing it. And so we were just, making it happen. And then all the window views you see out of her office and the big space, all of those were filmed in New York out of a friend's hotel room in in Wall Street, so we just we're this is a very low budget film. So we wanted it to look like $1 million, but we most assuredly did not have $1 million. So we did everything we could, with a very, very tiny crew. I think there was 4 people with us in New York. In Portland, there was more, 16, something like that. But still, we only filmed for, I think, 10, 11 days in Portland and then just a few days in New York. So yeah, so there's some reverence in going through and being in New York and being in Wall Street during that moment. But also we were just on a mission. So, once all the spots you have to fill, it wasn't quite as romantic as when Ajo was experiencing the financial crash, if I can call it that.
Well, and I'd just like to add, we knew exactly, as Aero mentioned, what holes we needed to fill. We weren't, the script even identified, and we went through and broke down the script and we figured out what we would be shooting in Portland and then what we planned to shoot in New York. And then I'm sure we even had some sequences cut together by that point before we went to New York. So we knew not just which holes to fill, but we knew also that we needed to get some texture, right, and some connective tissue, and New York really gave us the opportunity to get outside of the building that most of the story occurs in. So, and I mean, for better or for worse, we only had so much time. So we knew that, like, with the time that we had to accomplish our priorities, and then if we had a little extra, a few minutes here, a few minutes there, we could grab some B-roll or some establishing shots that maybe we didn't use. So, and then the window, the composites, those were all kind of, we knew exactly which angles we needed for those plates that we shot in New York City. So we knew ahead of time which shots in the office we need to match those plates to. So that was super helpful. So we had a perfectly prescribed list of what kind of plates we needed to shoot, which saved us a lot of time. And, hats off to our visual effects supervisor and our visual effects artist who helped us figure out exactly which plates we needed for those composites. And they worked out pretty well, I think.
Yeah. And speaking of cycles, I really appreciate it. Like Aero said, it was so scrappy, and we couldn't afford to rent a room for a day to film out the windows. So it just so happened that actually a collaborator on the original theater version, who's a close friend of mine, had moved out of the city and had a day job in the city that had paid for her to have a hotel room in Lower Manhattan for that day. So she was, at work for the day and said, yeah, you can set up in my room and film out the windows. And we were all staying on couches, and then we'd meet at 9 a.m., in front of the stock market building exchange to start filming. And it felt so kind of authentic to my experience in 2008 of being a sort of just struggling artist in New York, surrounded by Wall Street. And so I really appreciate, it was definitely a little bit grueling in the moment. It was very cold, and there are a lot of, I remember putting on, our makeup artist came and we're in a mall in Midtown. She's doing my makeup in the food court. It was very fascinating and not at all glamorous, but super exciting. And it really did feel like the process of making the film and the story in the film were really authentically kind of interlinked, which I just appreciate that.
Well, and I will add one more tiny thing, which is that, when you're working with the original piece being Ajo in front of a projection, we had a lot of visuals to create. There was, Zach Margolis, who did the original animation for her stage show, we brought him in to continue the work and to expand upon it in the film. So some of those original animations from her stage show, actually, I used them all as placeholders when we were doing the edit, which was really helpful. And even, when we were just kind of putting the film together, we're like, this is going to be an animated section, until the very end, the last few months, we didn't even really know what the monk section with all the beautiful, there's a ton of beautiful animation with the Japanese, it's based on the Japanese garden here in Portland, although I probably shouldn't tell anybody that. But, he made such beautiful work, and we knew that'd be a big element of it, but there was literally nothing prescribed, right? Nothing but the animation was in any way ever dipped into at all. So for me, it was kind of a little daunting, yes, but also totally exciting because that's what I love to do. It's like I get to create visuals that, pair with this incredible story. And how do we do that, with the narrative? How do we do that where we build a world around her? When we just are in this black box of a theater, it's compelling when you're in that space and she's right there and you can feel the artist's energy. And it's incredible to see theater, musical theater of any kind like that, or any theater. With this, it was like, well, how do we do that if someone's sitting at home, right? They're not going to care about someone. I mean, Bo Burnham can sort of do it, I guess, but it's a difficult thing to keep up. And plus with this, there was just so many opportunities for visual beauty, and to see New York from a different perspective. I feel like we always see this like Wolf of Wall Street BS, which is like a particular kind of ideal, which is not at all true. And what was it like to be an artist on Wall Street during the height of the financial crash? Like that's just, it affected all of us, right? But I thought that it'd be a good thing for her to be able to tell that story, and as a cautionary tale to exist now.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. No. Certainly. And yeah. No. So we only have a few minutes left, and I was going to ask a question about the cautionary tale, but I'll instead add on end on a question that is maybe a little more uplifting, though I am so curious about your thoughts in the context of November 2021, some of the film's takeaways, but on a kind of an uplifting note. I mean, for a lot of filmmakers, I imagine releasing their feature film during a pandemic virtually is a challenge and can be a little bit of a downer. And one thing I really felt in watching yours is that I felt like I was part of a ritual and that I was part of a community, which really kind of comes through the cinematography and the structure. But I'm curious for you all in experiencing your film as a digital release, and having virtual screenings. How has that kind of impacted your understanding of the film's central takeaways, or have there been reactions that have surprised you, or have there been any other elements of the fact that it's being released digitally that you may not have anticipated?
Well, I don't have any experience releasing anything any other way, but I will say it's really moving to me to hear you say that you felt included in the ritual of the film, of the moment, of the art, and that, I'm someone who I kind of believe that all performance is ritual, and all ritual is performance, and all art is a spiritual practice, and all spiritual practice is art. And it would be really fun to be in rooms with people more than we have been. And hopefully that'll happen over the next 6 months as things open up. But at its heart, my hope is what you said, is that this is something about being human and asking some, very kind of intense questions about things that touch the center of human experience in one way or another. And I think, in a way, that helps me feel like however it gets experienced, it's still sacred ritual, and as someone who does kind of literally officiate rituals, I've done a lot of that on Zoom in the last year and a half. And I've been really actually impressed and moved by how I've done bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and, mourning kind of funeral ceremonies. And it's different in some ways, and in some ways it's exactly the same, to just be humans energetically joining together to connect. So that would be my response. I'm curious what Aero and Laura think.
I mean, on one level, it's disappointing because I love human energy, and being in the room is so amazing. And I'm so mad to not be in, Pennsylvania with you guys, hanging out and having a drink and celebrating Center Film Festival. That's part of what all filmmakers want, but it's also not realistic in this climate, for lots of different reasons. So, I came to the point early on that to be zen about this, because this film had to be out now. I don't know why. but this is the cycle, why the pandemic, all of it, it just was a really wild, the timing is not ideal, sure, but maybe it is ideal. Maybe this is when the film needs to be. I mean, oddly, Madoff died just a month after we had our first film festival. And that felt kind of odd and profound. And in a way, I'm really glad that we released it when we released it, because it was made as if he was alive, right? So the conversation sort of changed right after he died. And it's something we have to talk about now that we didn't have to talk about at the premiere, right? So, but I feel like it had to happen in some ways because of that. So I just trust that in some way, whatever path we're on is the right path. People have a lot of passion for this film. And some really don't get it, and that's okay. And I think that, that it's a very Jewish movie also. And I think that has its own sort of, fan base and community around it, but it's so much more than that. And I think the thing that's really surprised me is the people I really don't think would be interested in any way, shape, or form come to me who are like, oh my God, and this and that. And I'm like, wow, it's exciting to see how it translates so far beyond, whatever audience we intended, which was kind of just anybody, but knowing it would be a very Jewish, very feminist, very witchy film, we had to just, lean into that and have it be who we are, not just Ajo, but also me. That's what we connected on. So to trust ourselves, to make something that was of ourselves, to give to others. Now what they do with it is up to them. And distribution, yes, we might not be the average film in a lot of ways, but we found some pretty incredible people to help us and to guide us. So we're optimistic that we'll find the right home. And, honestly, this project, whether it was a stage show or a film, it has a very serious fan base. We were the top seller at our first film festival. The first few were we won the audience award at the Ashland Independent Film Festival. We've won 3 awards. So, as many rejections as we get, we're getting really good acceptance. It's any filmmaker knows it's not all one or the other. You see all the positive. What you don't see is the stuff that, where people say no. So we're just kind of, writing it really naturally. And it's exciting to see people's reactions. There's an amazing article in the Atlantic. Recently, there was an article in Religion News that got picked up by Washington Post that included the film. The press has been good. Reviews have been great. I just think it's going to find its audience the way it finds it. And it will grow in a very natural way because there's so few films like it, especially in the Jewish feminist witch diaspora.
And I would add, for our premiere at Portland International, as well as at Ashland, we were streaming nationwide. And so we actually, we had fans and supporters in New York that could watch the film through the streaming of the Portland International Festival. So that was an opportunity, at least for our premiere and for the first couple of festivals after that, to create opportunities to promote the film, not just locally, right? Like to also promote the film to supporters and friends and family and other folks across the country to encourage them to support the film festivals and to support our film by buying a streaming ticket to watch the film. So that is definitely that's a new paradigm as far as film festivals go. And this hybrid model now is really making it possible for us to reach audiences that don't know anything about us, right? That had never heard anything about any of us or about the film. And I think that as a movement in, independent film exposure, not just at the festival level, but also segueing into distribution, these hybrid models are not going to go away. And it's only helping build audiences and create, demand for independent content that a lot of these people would not necessarily be exposed to any other way, especially if festivals were just in person. So the changes that have happened both at the festival level and the distribution level, I think are very exciting for independently produced content like this. So it's been a great experience. It's been a great learning curve for us to, consider the ins and outs of how to move from our festival release phase into a distribution phase, and what strategies will we take from our festival experiences forward into distribution, because now the lines are kind of blurring between the two.
Yes, yes, no, yes, certainly. And for our central Pennsylvania audience, please take advantage of watching a Kaddish for Bernie Madoff. If you have not yet, you can stream it on centerfilm.org. Thank you all so much for this wonderful conversation. It's so interesting to learn about your process. So thank you, producer Lara Cuddy, director, editor, and co-screenwriter A. Rowe, Alicia J. Rose, and creator, star, and composer Alicia Jo Rabins, A. Joe. Thank you all so much. And just a reminder to our audiences that Lara Cuddy is also the producer on Lorelei, which is playing this week. So be sure to check it out. Our next live stream is tonight at 9 p.m. with the directors and producers of Drunk Bus. So please join us here virtually. But then if you're able in person, we're having an exciting Pennsylvania premiere of Home from School playing tonight for the Indigenous Heritage Month, playing at the State Theater in downtown State College. Thank you all so much, and best of luck on your future screenings and on your trip to Estonia to share the film to an international audience.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thanks to Pearl and to Center Film. And I will say, if you want any more information on the film, go to akaddishforberniemadoff.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, and look us up, and please follow. There's many more adventures to come, including, yes, we'll be in Estonia in 2 weeks, to having our European premiere at Tallinn Black Nights of Cinema Festival, POF. So we're super thrilled. We get to go to an actual theater and see people. But we're so happy to be part of Center Film. So thanks again.
Thanks so much.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you. Yay.
Bye.